This is Conversations with Women in Sales, an award-winning podcast created by Barbara Giamanco, who hosted the first 67 episodes. Listen to interviews with amazing women about their journeys in their sales careers, often discussing sales leadership tips, ideas, and strategies. We aim to inspire women to consider a sales career and for some women to grow into sales leadership. Men, we appreciate your allyship. And now, your host, Lori Richardson.
I'm really excited about today's show because we have two guests today. We normally have one. We have Bayley Fesler and we have Annie Jones. Both are from Exactly Corporation. And Bayley is Director of Rev Ops and Annie is Revenue Ops Business Partner. Did I get that right, ladies?
Yeah.
That's correct. That's great. And I have to tell you, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but what I admire about Exactly is that for the longest time, maybe not since the pandemic, but pre-pandemic, Exactly has pulled data out about women in sales because you all love salespeople and you help them with the software that you provide. But I know that Chris Cabrero, the CEO, he had a commitment to this and other people have been involved in getting really good data about women in sales. So I just want to start off by saying thanks for that.
You know, I can take credit, but we're at the company that does.
Yeah, it's great that you work for a company that, cares about those kinds of things. And I have cited Exactly's data in my book that came out in January and also previously on blogs and podcast episodes. It's been an ongoing thing for some time. So I appreciate that very much. Welcome to you both. And I think it's interesting because we're talking with RevOps folks today. And first of all, I want to define it. I'd love to get your definitions and then how you work together with sales. So why don't we start off with that with you, Bayley?
Sure. Yeah. And I really define RevOps as the alignment of people, process, and technology to support not only the sales organization, but the entire go-to-market and customer lifecycle. Because we tend to touch almost every part of it.
Yeah.
From, our partnership with marketing ops to handing off to customer success and someone becoming a customer. It's from your experience in sales, kind of just the start.
Yeah. How about you, Annie?
Yeah, Bayley always has that definition down, but I think it really rings true. And in my role, I think it's the perfect example. I'm making sure that everything works from lead to close and beyond that. And so really it is that we touch like every single department because without it, we can't really do our jobs and we can't really be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. These are the things that are going on that we need to be successful. And I know I may change conversations with women in sales eventually to conversations with women in go-to-market because everything works together and we need it all to work. And we have revenue generating in every step of the way from all the things that you're talking about and probably all the things that you're both involved in. So Bayley, I'm curious, you started out in sales ops as an intern. And was that your first job out of college?
Yeah, back in info blocks. That was actually between my junior and senior year of college and internship. I actually joined Marketo as a sales development rep intern and previously doing retail sales. Like that's how I supported myself through high school and undergrad. It was a rude awakening. Things not Yeah, I think SDRs and BDRs are often like the unsung heroes of sales organizations.
Yeah.
But that was very humbling, to say the least.
And Marketo is like a rocket ship.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough to be there for just about all phases of it. I only left in September of last year. So I was there pre-IPO as a public company, as a Vista equity firm, and then as an Adobe company.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. I think I really lucked out with my first company straight out of undergrad.
Yeah, that's amazing. And now your current role is Director of Revenue Ops at Exactly. So what do you specifically do?
Yeah. So I'm overseeing our sales compensation strategy, our business partner organization, which has a large focus on sales planning, sales strategy, forecasting, of course, territory and quota alignments, as well as the quote to cash organization. So all things CPQ, everyone's favorite topic. CPQ is a passion for me. I love it. I think it's fun. I think it's cool things you can automate and do within there. And across all of those teams and people and organizations, my goal is to make sure that salespeople have more time to spend with their customers, not doing administrative tasks within Salesforce or within CPQ.
Yeah, that's the way a lot of salespeople do spend their time. We waste a lot of our time. We know that. And it's great when you have a RevOps team to help you streamline that. Annie, how did you go from the Department of Public Health and end up supporting sales ops?
Yeah, quite a leap. I always say I think my career is a very good example of somebody who didn't really know what they wanted to do in college and after college. And I found my way. I started in public health, just an opportunity presented itself to me that sounded interesting. And I took it. And then after a few, realized I wanted something a bit faster paced. And so I made the leap into RevOps, really. And Bailey eventually hired me into Marketo, and that's where our relationship began. But yeah, what I always say is that I just took it one decision at a time and thought, what's the next best step here? And what am I good at? And what do I enjoy doing? And I'm pragmatic and I enjoy streamlining processes and things like that. And so it's led me into the RevOps world because there's so much of that in what we do.
And it's great when it's pragmatic and it's process oriented and everything, but sales can be a really crazy department.
Yeah. I don't think I quite knew what I was getting into, but I've grown to really love it. I mean, a lot of fun personalities, and it's definitely pushed me outside my comfort zone many times.
Yeah. Some of the best people I've seen go into the sales team in one role or another they came from, I don't know, a different world. They're much more organized and sales. We used to always be just flying by the seat of our pants. I've been in sales for over 30 years, and those that can bring a methodical, practical oriented approach, that's what sales really needed, right? We need less guessing and more facts and data. So I've really enjoyed seeing sales become more of a science over time. There's still some art to it for sure, but what a change that I've seen in sales over a number of years. I bet you both have too, in terms of all the tools and all the processes, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just wonder if you would say a little bit about how about a company that doesn't have a team like yours? What do they do to get more organized and process oriented? Do you have any suggestions? Either of you.
Yeah. So without a RevOps team, it can be a little bit scary. Or when that first person comes in, it can be a little overwhelming. But I would say just having that good cross-departmental collaboration and communication and just a certain level of awareness of what happens when my deal gets countersigned. How is that information then getting passed to finance for invoicing so that I can ultimately receive commission? How are we making sure that the customer's software is getting activated? I think as long as there's those open lines and open channels of communication and it doesn't feel like sales against the world at the company, then you're in an okay spot.
Yeah. I would just add on, I think, like Bailey had mentioned, we focus on people, process, and technology. And I think you can do that with or without a revenue operations team, but really being intentional about the technology that you're using and making sure you have a process around it that really makes it so that you get the most out of it is important. So don't just get tools to get tools. Don't just make sure you implement them in a thoughtful way.
Yeah. And we've seen that with the kind of the SaaS bubble bursting recently this year. How has that changed what you all do? I don't know, was it smooth for you all at Exactly? Because you work with so many different industries, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think everyone's feeling it to a degree. And there's definitely a level of pressure on revenue operations organizations to make sure that we're spending our budget in thoughtful and meaningful ways that are results driven. So I would say we're probably in a similar boat to most. And really, the fun of being at Exactly is that we're the power users of our own software. And it's been so fun because spending all that time at Marketo was fantastic, but I'm not a marketer. I didn't get to play with it.
But you do now.
But yeah, and it is fun.
And it works well, which is great because there are a lot of apps and software out there that was a nice to have, but not a must have. You have a must have. And that makes things a lot better, I would think.
Yeah. And it's been so fun as a RevOps person. And I think it's important, like we spend so much time working, it's important to enjoy what you're doing and to have fun doing it. And trying to explain my job to my parents is always just like a fun adventure. I was like, yeah, I'm taking things out of, I was like, think of a flow chart. I'm taking squares out of it. More efficient.
That's great. So I love that analogy. That's good. I get it.
But it's just been so great. Like the way we pass information between the Exactly tools to drive and then measure against our go-to-market strategies or organizational goals and different parts of the process we can look at. We used Incent heavily for a long time at Marketo, and it really made a lot of our enterprise sales reps trust our plans a little bit more and help motivate them. And just the features and things that are available now, being kind of removed from it at Adobe for a few years, I felt like a kid in a candy store. What we have.
That's fantastic. Okay, so there's the elephant in the room is that we're in a very male majority world. Why in the name of everything? We know that women can be very good at sales. We know that women can make very good leaders, very strong leaders. Some would say better than men, although I won't go that far. I would just say if women are as good, why aren't half of the sales organizations made up of women? I'd love to hear some thoughts on that. How about you first, Annie?
Sure.
I think I can just speak from my own experience. Sometimes what makes you successful at sales is being the loudest person in the room and not taking no for an answer. And I think as women, we've been conditioned throughout our lives to be nice and agreeable and not always use their voice to its full potential. And so that might lend itself to what you're talking about, that we've taken a back seat in some ways. And the people who are showing that confidence, they are automatically, they go to the top. And so just by that nature, we end up in a landscape like that.
What about you, Bailey? What do you think?
I will say we were fortunate enough to work with a pretty wide array of female sales leaders like at Marketo across both of our experience there. And we have a number of really fantastic female sales professionals at Exactly. But I would echo that and agree. I'm really excited to see what happens with Gen Z and the kind of confidence they have as they enter the workforce. I anticipate we'll see that continue to change in the mix of male and female sales reps, because I think in those same kind of gender roles, women are more conditioned to connect with people. And at least from what I've been observing, that's more how buyers are making decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to think that it was a negative stereotype about sales, which most of us have seen the movies and we know the references. But I ran into a lot of women in high school and just starting in college that had never even heard that there was a career involved in B2B selling. And I was really surprised about that because I don't know, I guess I thought initially everybody knew that. But when I was in my early 20s, 100 years ago, a long time ago, I knew that I could sell because I grew up in a family run business. And so when I was a teacher of young children, and I became a single parent, and I couldn't afford my teaching job anymore. It was just a little over minimum wage. And I knew that sales could be a good profession. I don't know why I knew that, but I got into technology sales, and it was way, way back in the early 80s. And their money was just flying out the door, in the door and out the door. And we couldn't sell enough. It was an amazing time. And I had no problem being a woman in my first role, But in the second role, when I started moving to other companies, they had never hired a woman in field sales before. And so it was quite interesting to go through some of that. But I guess I just wonder, do you see things changing at all? Does it feel different? Because you work with all of your clients are sales organizations, right? What do you
Sales
know?
organizations and compensation teams and revenue ops teams, frankly,
Yeah.
that we work.
Are you noticing any change or not?
I would say in a lot of the lead gen orgs, I'm noticing changes. I'm noticing more women entering the workforce interested in sales. And same boat. I grew up in Alaska and I wasn't super aware of technology software as a career, but I was lucky enough to have an uncle who has had a sales career in Silicon Valley, and he geared me in the technology direction while I was in college. But yeah, I'm hopeful to continue to see more of that. I do see that changing, just the way the landscape and the way we buy software is changing, even from when I joined Marketo in 2012, 2013 with the stars and the flames. That only tells you so much anymore, like one piece of the story.
Right. Yeah. And now we're embracing more soft skills in selling and empathy. Everyone talks about empathy now. It's like that's something that women bring to the table in droves typically. How about you? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, as Bailey said, as we see a younger generation come up in the professional workforce, I think because these conversations and the emphasis on putting a spotlight on women and ensuring that we do have a place in the workforce, whatever workforce we're in, I think that organically, I hope that'll lend itself to evening the playing field. But I do think that the younger generation that we're working with hopefully come into it with a bit of a different perspective of what we're used to.
Yeah, maybe we can start with pay equity.
That'd be great.
Because that was something I had no idea that you could actually negotiate your salary when I started. And to know that women are still not paid, not all women are paid the same as their male counterparts, even in a sales role, is interesting to me.
Yeah. I think when I think about all of the behavior that I've unlearned throughout my career, it is, you think, oh, I'm just going to take what they give me and just be thankful. And talking to yourself and realizing that you have a right to ask for it. I always, when I'm nervous to ask a question, I just think, would a man be nervous about this? And I kind of use that as my guide. And I hope that we can display that behavior, like I said, and as younger people enter the workforce, they see more and more of that, and it's not as taboo.
Yeah. Yeah. A man will say on his second or third day of work, Bailey, I want your job someday. Tell me what I need to do. And be totally comfortable saying, what do I need to know to get to that? And as women, we're like, oh, I wouldn't need, I'll just keep my head down, keep working and working.
Or just not even going for a role, possibly. Oh, I don't have the 2 or 3 bullets of experience that it is listed in the job description. Like, why would I put my hat in the ring? Like it, Annie, I love the word you use. It has been a lifelong of learning since joining the workforce.
I think there are statistics around that women are less likely to apply for jobs if they don't have every single one of the requirements that are listed on the job posting, whereas men will see 1, 2, 3 of them and think, all right, I'll give it a shot. And where does that self-doubt come from for women? And that's, I think you can embolden yourself by thinking more of, if a man's going to do this, why can't I?
Yeah. And on the flip side, an employer can say, if you don't meet all the requirements, apply anyway. So there are things we can do on both sides of it so that it's not just all on us as women to figure it all out, but that our future employers can encourage us. And sometimes it takes that extra step to get a woman to apply for a role and to get her to go through and not decide, maybe I'm not going to, I don't want to keep going. I don't think I'm going to get it. I don't want to waste your time, which is more about me thinking about you and your time than me not having confidence to think I could do it. So I think it's framing, right?
And I think as companies focus on internal mobility as well, just like looking internally, look for people women who embody those qualities and the full skill set you're looking for, but where can you compromise to give somebody a shot to grow your own company from within?
Yeah. So any books that you're reading or podcasts or audiobooks that you'd recommend, either of you?
Yeah. So one that I consistently revisit that's, I think, really helped me develop into the leader I am today is Radical Candor by Kim Scott.
Yes.
I love looking at that grid to make sure I'm not in the ruinous empathy category. And that because it works for managing your team as well as presenting facts or giving feedback that may not be well received. And it helps me like check myself too.
Good point.
It helps me look in the mirror.
Annie?
Yeah, I read this right at the beginning of my career, but it's called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office by Lois Frankel. It's funny. I think it's worth a reread at this point in my career, about a decade in. When I read it, I don't think I had the context to understand truly. I read it just out of college, but I didn't have the context to truly understand a lot of what was being said. But what we just spoke about, where you're unlearning these behaviors, it really speaks to that about don't be afraid to raise your voice, use your voice. Don't be afraid to be confident and things like that, which I think is such a good message for young women.
Yeah, that's great. I think your company is lucky to have you all running RevOps. That's fantastic. And if I could challenge you to encourage the top women leaders there to write a book or to be more guests on podcasts like you're doing, which is fantastic, because people will see these examples and then they'll think maybe I can do it too. And we don't have to just leave that to the guys to do. I appreciate you both being on very much. Bayley Fesler and Annie Jones of Exactly Corporation will be watching your careers and keep doing great things. And thank you so much for everything that Exactly has done to help with the data on women in sales too. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conversations with Women in Sales. You can find all of our episodes at womensalespros.com/podcast. Help us spread the word and let's change the face of B2B sales.